In the electrifying world of boxing, few fighters have commanded awe and respect, quite like Naoya Inoue. Nicknamed the Monster, Inoue's dominance in the bantamweight division by 2018 had made him an unstoppable force, the kind of champion who made his peers look mortal and his opponents look defeated before the first bell rang. His participation in the World Boxing Super Series further cemented his status as the new terror of the division. But fate, as it often does in the brutal and unpredictable world of combat sports, had something else in store. Inoue was destined for a night that would test not only his physical prowess, but also the depths of his resolve and spirit, and the man who would stand across from him in the ring on that fateful night was none other than the legendary Filipino warrior Nonito Donaire, a fighter whose name alone struck both reverence and fear. Known affectionately and reverently as the Filipino Flash, Donaire had long established himself as a fearsome puncher, with a resume that included multiple world championships across several weight divisions. Even in the latter stages of his career, Donaire remained a dangerous foe capable of stopping anyone with a single devastating punch. His reputation was built not just on power, but on the surgical precision and calculated aggression that left his opponents either sleeping on the canvas or nursing psychological scars. Despite his age, there were still many who knew better than to underestimate the seasoned fighter, and so when the two were scheduled to face off, fans and pundits alike braced themselves for what would be more than just a fight. It would be a war between two generations, a symbolic confrontation between rising greatness and enduring legacy. The stage was set for November 7, 2019. But even before Inoue could wrap his hands and make his walk to the ring, he had already been dealt a psychological blow. Just minutes prior to the main event, his younger brother Takuma Inoue suffered his first professional loss and lost his bantamweight title. The disappointment was evident, and the pressure on Naoya to restore family honor and re-establish dominance was immense. But like the consummate professional and fierce competitor he is, Naoya channeled that pressure into fuel. The fire within him roared to life, and as he stood face to face with Donaire, the air in the arena grew heavy with tension. The two men locked eyes, and their stare down alone could have made a young Mike Tyson shudder. It was a clash of titans, a battle of wills, and the beginning of what would soon become a legendary bout. From the opening bell, it was clear that Donaire had come to fight, not to fold. He matched Inoue's energy and aggression, meeting fire with fire and refusing to be intimidated by the younger man's reputation. Inoue, for his part, responded with equal ferocity. The early rounds were filled with exchanges that had fans on the edge of their seats. Then in the second round, disaster struck for Inoue. A perfectly placed right hand from Donaire fractured Inoue's orbital bone, a severe and painful injury that would have caused many fighters to fold or retreat into a defensive shell. But Inoue was no ordinary fighter. He displayed grit and tenacity that transcended physical pain, proving that his heart was every bit as formidable as his fists. The middle rounds of the fight saw both men continue to throw with bad intentions. Each round brought new drama, new bruises, and a deepening respect between the two warriors. Neither fighter was willing to back down. Every jab, hook, and counter carried weight, literal and symbolic. Donaire's veteran instincts and power, punches kept the young champion honest, while Inoue's speed and relentless combinations chipped away at his opponent's resolve. In the ninth round, the unthinkable nearly happened. A well-timed overhand counter from Donaire connected flush, stunning Inoue in a way we had never seen before. For a moment, the monster staggered. Yet even in that moment of vulnerability, Inoue's instincts kicked in. He slipped the inevitable follow-up left hook, proving that his ring IQ was just as sharp as his physical reflexes. By the 11th round, it was clear that both men were reaching the outer limits of their endurance. But it was then that Inoue dug deepest. A ferocious left hook to the body ripped into Donaire's midsection, sending the Filipino veteran to the canvas. The pain etched on Donaire's face told the story of a punch that did more than knock the wind out of him. It shattered his momentum and left him gasping not only for air but for clarity. Yet, true to his warrior spirit, Donaire beat the count and rose to his feet. He would go on to finish the round and the fight, even as his body betrayed him and his will was tested with every passing second. The 12th and final round was less about who would win and more about who would endure. Both fighters had bled, hurt, and been humbled, but neither had broken. As the final bell rang, the two combatants stood as symbols of valor. Inoue had done enough to secure the unanimous decision victory, unifying the WBA Super and IBF Bantamweight titles and winning the prestigious Muhammad Ali Trophy. But it was not just the belts that he had claimed that night. It was also a new level of respect for himself and from the world. In the aftermath, as fans stood in awe and pundits scrambled to recount the majesty of what they had just witnessed, Inoue revealed the full extent of his injuries, a fractured orbital bone and a broken nose. The damage only underscored the level of courage he had displayed. Ring magazine would go on to name their encounter the fight of the year, and rightly so. It had been more than a contest. It had been a moment in time that transcended sport. For Inoue, it was a passing of the torch moment, a rite of passage. For Donaire, it was a reaffirmation of greatness, even in defeat. Remarkably, Donaire's story did not end there. Far from fading into retirement, the Filipino Flash defied time and expectations by returning to the ring with renewed purpose. He won another title, defeating top-tier opponents and becoming the oldest bantamweight champion in history. It was a testament to his resilience and to the respect he had earned through his war with Inoue. But the story between these two gladiators was not yet finished. 3 years later, the rematch was made. Inoue, now a more evolved and complete version of the fighter who had struggled through their first encounter, was eager to prove that his previous war had been an anomaly. Donaire, on the other hand, believed he had found the key to beating the monster. He claimed to have noticed weaknesses in Inoue's style, flaws he intended to exploit. When they met again, the dynamic was entirely different. Inoue entered the ring not just as a champion, but as a refined, more patient, and defensively sound version of himself. The first round effectively conveyed the story. Sharp jabs, crisp counters, and intelligent movement kept Donaire at bay. The aura had shifted. In the second round, Inoue landed a blistering right hand that sent Donaire crashing to the canvas, stunned and wide-eyed. He beat the count, but it was evident that the monster in front of him had become twice as deadly. Inoue continued the assault, launching a succession of hooks that left Donaire disoriented and defenseless. The referee stepped in and ended the fight, a sharp contrast to their grueling first bout. Inoue had made a statement. He had not only defeated a legend, but had also erased any doubts about the first encounter being a close affair. The rematch had been conclusive, clinical, and brutal. With that victory, Inoue's focus shifted to Paul Butler, the British champion who held the last piece of the bantamweight puzzle. Butler, ever the strategist, bet on Inoue running out of gas late in the fight. He assumed that the monster's fury would burn out before the championship rounds. But what unfolded was a one-sided display of brilliance. From the moment the bell rang, Inoue dictated the pace, throwing power punches with bad intentions and artistic rhythm. Butler quickly realized that standing in front of Inoue was a mistake. He adopted a high guard, turtling up to protect his head and liver while offering minimal resistance in return. Butler's strategy devolved into survival. He circled, ducked, and clinched. Yet with each passing round, Inoue's confidence grew. He began to toy with his prey, showing off moves inspired by legends like Muhammad Ali and Roy Jones Jr. The crowd roared as Inoue danced, shuffled, and punched with precision that bordered on sadistic. Butler was flinching at shadows, reacting to feints and backing up with every step. When he did stop moving, it was only to tighten his guard and absorb the onslaught. By the 11th round, the outcome was inevitable. Inoue, fueled by a combination of artistry and aggression, unleashed a final sequence that left Butler crumpled on the canvas. The referee waved it off, and with that knockout, Inoue became the first undisputed bantamweight champion since Enrique Pinder in 1972. It was a historic moment, the crowning achievement of a career already filled with accolades. Butler, to his credit, would later admit what millions already knew. Inoue was a force unlike any other. He described Inoue's presence in the ring as overwhelming. admitting that he felt outmaneuvered even before the first punch was thrown. It was a telling statement and one that underscored the psychological warfare Inoue conducts simply by existing within the squared circle. Inoue's ascent didn't stop there. With the bantamweight division conquered, he set his sights on the super bantamweight class. Critics wondered if his power would translate, if his style would hold up against bigger, stronger opponents. Those doubts were silenced when he stepped into the ring with Stephen Fulton, a champion in his own right, and dismantled him with the same ruthless efficiency. The monster had climbed yet another mountain, and there were more to conquer. As fans and analysts look to the future, the only question that remains is, how high can Naoya Inoue go? If history is any indication, the answer might just be as far as he wants.